And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show, 888-659-3727. Thank you so much for joining us on this special Monday edition of The Bald Truth. We could not make it on Friday, and we couldn't make it the week before. But we are back. I'm not even sure how long the show is going to be today. But we made the decision that even if, for whatever reason, we cannot do a live broadcast on the day that we are scheduled to do the live broadcast, we're going to make sure that we bring some live content to you guys anyway, whatever that day is.
Sometime, whenever we have a gap in our schedules, our damn busy schedules.
Exceptionally busy schedule, especially since, and we speak about this all the time, the industry is going fucking nuts. And
yeah.
Yeah. And the reality is that more people are being harmed today in the hair loss industry than ever before in the history of this really fucked up industry, because this field, and I'm not just talking about the hair transplant side, which is what we talk about a lot, but the entire field has been built on bullshit, smoke and mirrors, on complete nonsense. Now, there were some laws passed in the late 90s that essentially made it clear that the FTC would come down on any product or service that made certain claims that pertain to hair loss, hair regrowth, hair growth, the cessation of hair loss, etc., etc., etc. Now, I'd say for the first 2 or 3 years that those laws were passed, we started to see commercials dropping off the air, like for the old Helsinki formula and whatnot. I remember back in the early 2000s, Avicor came out. It's still out there now, but there were some issues where that particular product, they had a physician who was being represented as a physician with a license on camera doing their commercials, also on the radio. Never forget this guy's name. Last name was Gordon. Who had lost his license and was not an actual practicing physician. Now, from what I remember, my memory, I'm getting old. This was a long time ago. So at the time, I worked directly with the National Advertising Division of the Better Business Bureau. They came to me because I was on the radio at the time and asked if I could help them expose the reality of this particular huge company at the time. We're talking about, I think that the company was evaluated back then at almost $1 billion.
Cray.
So, and I think a lot of the physicians and a lot of the people in this industry kind of forget what transpired back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when, and you were kind of around, Joe. You were starting to come into, you just started to get into the field. So we are the OGs. But, being able to get out there, being able to do this program, being able to get out there in front of the mainstream media, especially as an OG, disruptor of this fucking field, we were able to make a lot of changes and a lot of difference back in the day. Long story short, not going to get into it, but based on my personal help and personal private investigation with the National Advertising Division of the Better Business Bureau, at the time, this company was no longer allowed to do what it was doing. It had to change its labeling. It had to warn people that actually what was in the active ingredient of their topical preparation was a drug, minoxidil.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some other major changes that had to take place, which, really screwed them up because a lot of people ended up essentially, filing complaints and being upset that they were using a drug that they were trying to avoid. Some people allegedly had heart conditions that were using a drug that they shouldn't have been using in the first place. So they essentially disappeared for about a decade or more. Now, the reason I bring this up is I was contacted by 2 media outlets today. I did a interview for I don't want to say who because I got a lot of detractors out there that will contact the papers probably, but for a major metropolitan publication that's huge, it's very well respected, about the hair wellness industry as well as the nutraceutical side of things as well as the women's hair loss side of things, all combined into one article.
Mm-hmm.
And what I had to explain, even though I think that, and I'm sorry if this is a long intro or rant, but there's a reason for this. What I had to explain to this particular reporter was that there are companies out there that are now providing products, especially both to men and women, but to women that contain herbal supplements or nutritional supplements that are herbs that can actually possibly affect dehydrated testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
And if these particular herbs, like saw palmetto, are taken while a woman is pregnant, it's possible, theoretically, and there's also a major warning through resources like WebMD and other mainstream medical resources, that women during childbearing years who are considering having a child or may be pregnant should not take saw palmetto. Period. Now, in order to find this warning on this particular website of this company that's selling a nutraceutical, you have to fucking dig. And it's not essentially a warning. It is thought that, some people say we have no causal evidence, blah, 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 blah.
Almost like rumor has it.
Yeah, rumor has it. But because it's a nutritional supplement, because the FDA has essentially no regulating powers over these supplements, they can say whatever the fuck they want. Now, I'm not saying this doesn't work for hair loss. I'm not saying that it's not possible that this could work for hair loss. In my experience, none of these nutritional supplements over the years, since I wrote the book, as obnoxious as that sounds, originally on these nutritional supplements for hair loss, and decided after years of people contacting us that they probably don't work. But whether it works or not, I really think that we are at a stage where we are making it's full circle. There's more shit online than ever before. It is as though these companies are completely ignoring the FTC guidelines when it comes to promoting these type of hair growth supplements and also topical preparations. And we are in fucking trouble. And consumers are in real trouble. So for those who are just tuning into the program, we are not 2 guys here who are trying to sell you something. We're not trying to sell you hair transplants. We're not trying to sell any type of products or services. There's not going to be a link underneath to some sort of an access code or whatever they're called to buy something. We're here to guide you and tell you the true history of this field, to tell you the truth about this industry. And we do focus a lot on surgery because, Joe himself has been in the trenches for many years in the surgical realm. I founded the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, but the reason for that is, in my view, sadly, surgery is the most dangerous side of the field. And that's where people's lives are destroyed in ways as far as, complete disfigurement. Guys have committed or attempted to commit suicide after having bad hair transplant surgery. So I guess the whole point of this long opening, this long rant, is to say that what happened in 1998, what we were able to accomplish and make and change, sadly, has been scaled to a point where now we are forced to come out and re-expose this industry in a way that I was really considering retiring. I was considering retiring just on a personal level from this entire industry, but also just the idea of having to, I thought that I would not have to continue to do things the way that I used to do them. But now I have to come out strong again. And, I know that the program was promoted as we were going to talk about the top 25 hair transplant surgeons in the world. But I think that this is actually a decent, segue into that. Because,
intro is, segue into that, exactly.
Because the reality is that I think the reason Joe wanted to talk about that is because there was an article that just came out by a colleague of ours in the UK, Spencer Speck Stevenson, who also co-hosts a program in the UK. And, he was asked last year to write an article on the top 5 hair transplant surgeons in the world, but he was able to get the top 20 hair transplant surgeons in the world. And this year, for 2020, he was able to add 5 more. The editorial board of this publication allowed him to do that. But the biggest problem is that the physicians in this field don't recognize that it doesn't matter who's listed on this fucking list. It's essentially created to provide information to the public about the reality of this industry, how fucked up it is, how unsafe it is. And this was an editorial piece that was written by one person, and that was Spencer Stevenson. Joe, I know you have a lot to say about this.
I do. Just as soon as I finish posting this real quick. I was playing catch up while you're doing your
listen, the
monologue.
The reason why I kind of jumped from the nutritional supplements to the industry itself to the surgical side of things is that, frankly, most of it's all bullshit anyway. 99% of the surgeons out there, in my view, I mean, that's why the IHS is so small. They suck at what they do. They are misleading the public, in my view, by their advertising. That's been scaled to a degree that is damaging so many people. There was a guy that contacted me, 2 people, which is interesting. I was contacted at the beginning of the week about someone who is utilizing the IHS seal and the American Hair Loss Association seal, who was not endorsed and recommended by us. And then a friend of ours from this show had a friend who went to this particular plastic surgeon for surgery and noticed that this particular plastic surgeon was using our seals. So that was twice in the same week.
Interesting.
And I'm sure he's going to call in, even though we have no lines late. I'm not even sure. I have to be honest with you. I've been having trouble with the phones. I cannot hear a dial tone, but I have been able to receive calls. So let me give out the phone number again. We have lines open. It's 888-659-3727. That is 888-659-3727. I need a haircut. Give me a call. Give us a call to talk about anything and everything hair loss. But also, let's talk about. First of all, Joe, I want you to talk about the top 25 hair transplant surgeons in the world, which happen to all be IHS members. I'm going to say one thing. In 2019, about 6 months ago, I was contacted by one of my members. 2 of them went nuts, but one of my members who was just livid that he was not listed in this article, that he somehow believed that I wrote because he did not read the byline, that it was the other Spencer that wrote this article. And then when I explained to him that, well, look, I can't control what he writes, he's like, well, they're all IHS members. You mean you had nothing to do with this? I'm like, no. That would be professional fucking suicide for me to have something to do with this, to somehow separate. out of my 70 doctors, 20 guys who are better than the rest. And B, Spencer Stevenson has a fucking mind of his own. He doesn't work for me. He's his own man. He does his own thing. I could use some help here, Joe.
No, that was good. That was a great start. But there was another doctor that was saying that he was actually going to be damaging his own reputation by putting out such a list because he didn't include this other doctor.
Oh, that's Specs was, yeah.
Yeah, the Specs was. But yeah, I thought it would be an interesting subject because, first off, I was hoping that some doctors would call in to give their impression of the list because I think that that is the ultimate discussion point right there. The top 25 from a doctor's perspective. But my perspective on this is, first off, kudos to Specs for being able to get this kind of article out there.
I turned down your levels, but you're a little hot on your mic.
Okay, I need to get used to that. But how's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So, like I was saying, kudos to Specs. Like this is, it's a great accomplishment to be able to get such a powerful article out there, and the exposure for doctors that he feels are the top 25. Now, here's my take on this. Do I have an issue with any of this? And the answer is no. Even though I may not agree with every doctor that's on the list being a top 25, I do agree that they all deserve to be on such a list because of this one reason. They are doctors that understand the value of educating their patients. Surgery is the last resort, and not jumping the gun just to get them in the door into the chair so they can have another surgery. In other words, they don't look at something like this being involved with as a lead generator. And that's what's great about this. I think that when you have doctors that are IAHS accepted members like these are, that helps to set them apart on their own, and then to be included on this list, I think that it helps to highlight the message that such a group of doctors revolves around more than anything else.
But and you're right about that, and I appreciate you saying that, and I'm sure that Specs does as well. But the reality is, when the first article came out, I was like, holy shit, this guy actually put IHRS almost as though it was their letters behind their name, MD, IHRS. But, just put IHRS member on, listed it on every goddamn, name. Now, I'm pretty sure the editorial board made that happen, and that Spencer or Specs said, look, these are all IHRS members. And the editorial board thought it would look better because they're designing the blog.
Yeah.
But I can't even tell you the fucking fallout of that. As opposed to people saying, you know what, I would like to take this time to congratulate my IHRS colleague, Dr. So-and-so, for being named or the top 20 or top 25 physicians in the world. And then the list of, Bald Truth Talk and the Bald Truth, you were named in the article. I mean, all the real resources out there. And including the IHRS where all these doctors are listed. Because I know that if it was my partner or my colleague or someone in my own town, I would write a public post. I mean, if you want to pimp yourself out, you write a public post, wherever this is, on the fucking article itself. Where was it? It's Ape to Gentleman. In the comment section. Yeah. And congratulate those doctors who are part of it. And other people will see you. If it's all about your visibility, you know what I mean?
Actually, that's a great point. And the problem that we're going to see is that maybe one or two doctors will do that, but I doubt even that'll happen. But that's the thing. It's like that. I was actually talking about this in our WhatsApp group with all these doctors. That too many times, doctors in this industry are playing the short game. They're looking at what's in front of their face instead of understanding the value of being strategic with what they do, what they say, how they act, and how they behave. And this kind of reaction that you and I think would make a lot of sense, it doesn't register with them. Because in their mind, they're either pissed because they're not on the list, they're pissed because they don't feel like these other doctors deserve it, or they think that if they were to actually step up and say congratulations to any one of these guys publicly, that it would detract from their own business. That they would have patients saying, well, maybe I should go to this doctor because the doctor that I'm considering congratulated him on being listed top 25. It's nonsense, because if you did your job educating the patient, they wouldn't want to go anywhere else to begin with.
100%.
So,
100%. It's insanity to me. It's all fucking ego. It's ego-driven. I don't understand it. And, honestly, look, I have. Oh, I didn't want to say it. That would these guys would go. But my reality is a lot different than a lot of the physicians believe in this field, and I was going to write about that today in the WhatsApp group. But the reality is that I have earned my living over the years through another resource. Everything that I've done, for the most part, in the hair world is, yes, of course, I've earned money, and I've done well, and I've sold a lot of books and all that stuff. But I never really had to utilize the majority of what I've earned to live. Mm-hmm. Period. That's one reason why I was able to keep things relatively small. That's one reason why when I got off the radio and I was considering kind of playing with, which is now playing with it for 10 years, the idea of having a live internet broadcast and a podcast, didn't put a lot of effort into getting the podcast out on a regular basis. Or it was just I wanted to do the live shows so that we can help people while we were live. Mm-hmm. And, I enjoyed that aspect of things, putting out clips, stuff like that. But it wasn't really something that I completely needed to focus on. But in the industry that I'm in, the other industry that I'm in, if for some reason I was not named top in that particular industry, in my mind, all I would have to do is look at my fucking bank account and realize, well, I am top. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of doctors out there that are doing extremely well that were not named in this list. Why the fuck do they care?
Because they're not doing extremely well.
But some of them are. I know that one guy in particular who was complaining has done very well for himself over the years. The other guy, who's actually a real politician who contacted me, I don't know what his situation is. I mean, I think that he may be at a point where he's struggling. So things are a little tough. But anyway, guys, listen. I just joined Joe's chat for the very first time. My handle is Hair Loss Podcast. What I would like you to do is go over there and subscribe to that channel as well. But I also want you to try to call into the program. I saw one guy called in, and it looks like the phone number came through, but it's not lit right now. Call in. The phones are open. I cannot call out on this particular phone line now because I'm having a problem with the system. I want to make sure that we can take calls today. We are live for a reason. The phone number is 888-659-3727. And the reason we're live is so that you guys can call in to ask your questions and also provide content for other hair loss sufferers who are out there who want to hear your stories, who want you to ask questions about what we're talking about, who want you to ask questions and get answers about your particular struggles. Because your struggles are everyone's struggles, and for the most part, who's dealing with hair loss.
Mm-hmm. Well said. 100%.
Damn right it's well said. Hold on.
Damn Skippy.
Okay, hold on. You know what, dude? You got to talk. I got to answer the door.
Is your delivery here?
Yes.
All right. Well, for people that are asking, the list of doctors is down below in the description. It's on a website called Ape to Gentleman, which is primarily a UK-based men's grooming website. And Specs, he's been a part of their I guess, I don't want to say writing staff, but he's been a contributing writer to Ape Gentleman for at least a year, maybe longer, because I think that he was writing some blog posts. But if you go through it, I mean, I'll see if I can pull it up here. Let's see. There are... Yeah, he's got 25 listed, and they're not in any particular order other than alphabetical. You got Dr. Scott Alexander, you've got Dr. Ken Anderson, Dr. Edward Ball, who is a doctor I work with. There's also Dr. Alan Bauman, Dr. Bhatti in India, Dr. Bazanga in Brussels, Dr. Scott Bowden. He's not a name that you hear very often, but he's been an IAHRS member for I believe several years, and he is in Connecticut. Of course, we've got Dr. John Cole, also a hair transplant mentor doctor. So is Dr. Jerry Cooley. We've got Dr. Robert Dorn in New York. Of course, Koray Erdogan in Istanbul. Dr. Bijan Feridouni, it's not a name that we're hearing much lately, but he's a really good doctor also in Brussels. Harley Street Clinic. Dr. William Lindsay in Virginia. I think he's near Washington,
D.C.
First
of all, I want to interrupt you. I left.
But you did.
I put the camera on. I thought I put the camera on you, and my Stream Deck wasn't working. And people just saw me get up, and there was an empty studio.
You need to get you know what? You need to get your studio in line, man.
Dude, let me see something. Now it's working. I don't fucking understand it.
Maybe you didn't hit the button properly. You're just in a rush.
Jesus Christ. Guys, call in or we're going to go home. 888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. I have a smoke show.
I'm not done.
I have a smoke show waiting for me in my green room here. So I'm ready to go at any time. Go ahead.
I'm not done. So, all right. Dr. Emran Lupanzula, the oldest member of Hair Transplant Mentor, also IHRS member. Dr. Patrick Mwamba, a new addition, Dr. Sever Mercenou. He is in Switzerland. He's a fantastic doctor. Another really good doctor is Dr. Alba Reyes. She's in the Dominican Republic. I've met her before. She's been all over the place training with different doctors. She's someone to check out.
You know what's great?
Of course, Dr. Ron Shapiro.
She's a recently accepted IHRS member.
Yeah, she's one of the newest ones, I believe.
Yeah.
Dr. Giza Sikos in Hungary. He's been around for a while. Dr. Robert True. And then it's going to be a tough one. I just call him Dr. Thidawat. He's in Thailand. Dr. Thidawat Werodrachchakul. Don't ask me to say that again. Just Dr. T. And then, of course, Dr. Jerry Wong, right here in Vancouver. And Dr. Amir Yazdan, and then Dr. what's his name? Svetlin Zarev. This guy does the largest FUE cases on the planet. Period. And he's on the list. So that's it. That is the top 25 for 2020. And if you got any comments, got any questions about it, give us a call. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, guys, 888-659-3727. I just asked you in the chat to give us a call. We have a lot of people actually who are watching and listening. I can see who's listening through iTunes, Stitcher, Radio, iHeart Radio. I have a graph on my computer. So, guys, it's a call-in show. And you know what? I do this. I took this from a page from Tom Likas when he was doing his live internet broadcast. That if you don't call in, we leave. And that's the beauty of the internet as opposed to doing live radio. When I was on live radio, you had that on-air sign. You had dead air and nothing but you. If you got no calls, you had 2 hours to fill somehow without taking any calls. And that never happened, luckily. But I'm not going to do that now.
We're not going to do that now.
We are not going to do that now. I know it's Monday. I know you guys aren't used to calling in on a fucking Monday. But if you want us to stay here and continue to do what we do, this is a call-in show. We want to hear from you, and other people want to hear from you. Now, I also want to make it clear that we have not been very consistent at all with our iTunes podcast or on-demand stuff. Everything's been on essentially Joe's YouTube channel, which is great. We put the video up there. But starting this week, we are going to be putting full podcasts. Actually, we're going to be splitting them up into probably about 2 40 to 50-minute segments on iTunes and on Spotify. We're going to start doing Spotify. And we're going to be doing at least 2 podcasts per week on demand as well. And the reason I decided to do that this year is I have been wrestling, and guys, thank you for calling. I'll take your calls in a second. I have been wrestling with whether or not I was going to stay on board. I know that I've told you that I wasn't going to retire, but I've been wrestling with whether or not I was going to stay on board and continue to do what I'm doing. Yesterday was a very telling day for me to make this decision. And that was a response on a private group that we have on Facebook from a physician in Jupiter, Florida, by the name of Ricardo Mejia. I am more determined now than ever to do what needs to be done in order. I was planning on saving this field to begin with, but now it's going to be a complete massacre. Because it has to be.
Why are you so violent?
It has to be, man. Let's take a phone call. Let's see who this is.
Okay.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hello, my name's Jordan. I'm calling from the UK.
Hey, man. How are you? Jordan, you said?
What's up, buddy?
Not too bad, thanks. How are you guys doing?
I need a haircut, but otherwise I feel pretty good.
My hair is great.
Actually, it is.
It's looking all right.
I have not had the opportunity to get my hair cut. I've been really busy doing shit. And going on camera as a guy who is pretty fucked up over his hair, and that's why he does what he does, without getting the proper haircut, means I'm fucking dedicated. So what can I do for you?
Oh, yeah. I've just got a quick question regarding, because I'm a younger guy, I'm 23 at the moment. I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts are on like the earliest age to consider going into like a hair transplant surgery.
Oof, well, I mean, I'm going to let Joe answer that because he is a guy who's had 9 hair transplants, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
10. But I will tell you that in general, even considering having a hair transplant at 23, even if you started losing your hair at 16, that makes it even more difficult for you to actually get a result, in my view, that will be a long-term result that will make you happy. But 23 is fucking young in general. Joe, you can speak about the particulars.
Well, did you say, Jordan, did you say that you started losing it at 16, or did Spencer add that in?
That was Spencer. So
okay.
For me, I'd say I started losing it probably around 19, just very slowly. Nothing drastic, but it's been a slow progression over the last sort of 4 years or so.
Okay, and where, like, have you met with a doctor yet?
I haven't yet, no. But I did start taking finasteride about 4 months ago, and that seems to have kind of stabilized it, I'd say.
Then how did you get your finasteride if you didn't meet with a doctor?
Well, I was able to get mine on an online pharmacy just by sort of filling out a sort of like online questionnaire, basically. I don't know if that's the normal method, but that's how.
Well, that's actually a method that has really been springing up. It's like the new hair wellness industry has really made it possible for people to get their prescription directly online. So, it's pretty typical, especially for guys your age.
Sure.
So if you were to guess what level of hair loss you have, do you know anything about the hair loss scale, the Norwood-Hamilton chart?
I do indeed, and I would say I'm somewhere between a Norwood 2 and a Norwood 3. And at the time that I buzzed my hair quite recently, and I would say I was probably just about entering Norwood 3, but it was nothing too drastic, not too major.
Okay. How do you like it with the buzz cut? How do you like that style?
I mean, it was certainly a lot different to what I was used to. That's for sure. I probably wouldn't do it again voluntarily, but it was definitely worthwhile doing because it actually gave me I didn't realize that I was kind of losing a small amount of hair around my crown. So that was probably the most interesting thing out of doing it. And that is at that time where I decided to start taking finasteride because of obviously losing at the crown. I was like, okay, I better start doing something rather than nothing. Otherwise, it could just get worse and worse over the next couple of years.
Well, yeah, and the thing about being 23 is you don't really know at this point where it's going to go. So, back to your original question, I'm asking you these follow-up questions simply because I don't believe there is a set age, like a static age that we need to cut off. But I think that if you're younger and all the conditions behind your hair loss are favorable, then it's not out of the question. But in general, I think that a bare minimum of 25, preferably towards 30. But it is a case-by-case situation, because if you're 25 years old and you've lost a lot of hair, even to a Norwood 6, if you have the donor hair for it, I don't see the problem, given some factors are considered, as long as the placement isn't aggressive. For instance, my own case, I was 22, I was your age when I had my first of 2 hair transplants that were really bad. I lost everything after it, except for the hair transplants. And for 9 years, I was bald, but I had these ant legs sticking out of my forehead as a hairline. And when I had my first repair, the hairline was placed high. It's still higher than someone like if I had a hair transplant when I had more hair, my hairline would probably be placed lower than it is now. So I think that if it's a conservative placement for a younger age, then it's okay in some cases. But your path should involve sticking with a medication for at least a year to see how you respond to it. I think that you should get in to see an IAHRS accepted member doctor ASAP to get a proper analysis of where you are today and where your future self might be in 10 years. And then consider your options when you're maybe 25. But I don't think you should do it now.
Let me ask you a question. How do you feel right now? I mean, you're on finasteride. You said that you have been able to slow or stop the progression of your hair loss. Do you feel relatively satisfied? If you were able to live with the hair that you have right now, would that be okay?
You know what? I mean, hair loss has been quite a big issue for me ever since I was 18, 19. And in the sort of couple of months prior to taking finasteride, my kind of stress levels about the whole situation were really high, and it was really bothering me a lot on a day-to-day basis. I'd say since I've started taking it and since I've noticed a kind of gradual strengthening in the hair that I do have at the moment, I would say I am more satisfied for sure. But at the same time, I have quite a naturally big forehead and high hairline. So even if I were to keep all the hair that I have now, I feel like a part of me would always be a little bit dissatisfied, and I'd probably still opt for looking into surgery at least.
Here's another question. So you said that you have a naturally high hairline. And now, has it, and I may have missed you because I've got 10 things going on, has it receded at all, or is it just been kind of an overall, a little bit of thinning in the crown and a little miniaturization in the front?
It has definitely receded. It's not a huge amount, but it has gone back. I mean, I've recently been looking at sort of old photos and making direct comparisons and stuff, and it's moved back a bit for sure, but nothing major basically.
Okay, so just to give you a little idea, I essentially have I guess it would be called like an oval type face that has a long, as opposed to a round face, and I had a pretty high-ish hairline just based on it wasn't high, but it just based on the shape of my face. So as it started to recede a little bit, I was fucked up. I was able to stop the progression using finasteride, and essentially I've had this hairline. It's slightly higher now than it was, say, about 15 years ago, but it still hasn't moved up that much. As I've gotten older, I have to say that not only have I gotten used to it, and it's beyond age appropriate. I mean, it compared to my contemporaries, it's lower than theirs. I got used to it pretty fast. I mean, you have to understand, I was about your age when it got to this height. It was a little bit lower. So, just by, as you can see, I kind of like wear it to the side, and I comb it down a little bit. Sometimes I comb it a little higher. But eventually you do get used to the way that you look, and you realize that you may be not getting less attention from women, or, as you stay on finasteride for a longer period of time, and as it possibly strengthens your hairline, or it strengthens the miniaturization, you may just get used to it and realize that, you know what, I am okay. So my thing is, you got to wait. Give yourself, see how long you can stabilize. Give yourself a year at least to look at yourself, to see pictures of yourself, to see yourself on video, to go out there and get laid and see how people respond to you and see how comfortable you can feel in your own skin before you go under the knife. Because once you're fucking cut, man, you are cut. There is no turning back.
Exactly.
That's right.
And I think it's vitally important to understand that our perspective, I swear, it's hard to believe it now, but it really changes. It's not just like you accept it. It actually does change as you start to see yourself more looking a certain way. Mm-hmm. Because you're still used to having your younger hairline because you're only 23 years old. Go ahead, Joe.
Exactly. I was going to say another resource for you to check out to help you maybe understand your situation or your options better is another YouTube channel called Bald Cafe. It's run by a guy named Harry who lives in southern England, actually, and he talks about the benefits of going the other direction, of shaving it off like you've done, or buzzing it down, and learning to accept what's going to happen naturally and own it. And it's all about support, and I think it's a great resource for people that want to consider alternatives to having to fight this fight, because this is a long-term, lifetime, for the foreseeable future, treatment that you're going to have to be taking to fight this issue, even without hair transplant. So if you get a surgery on top of it, then it's more important that you stick with the medication. I'm obviously an advocate for the power.
Joe, Joe, just so you know, your internet is crapping out.
Breaking up a little bit.
Now it's back.
Okay. Now it's back. Okay. So it's a great option for looking in a different direction to be great for you.
And I think that's a great suggestion, because I think that, it's funny. There's a lot of guys who are in this industry that look at a channel like Bald Cafe as some sort of a fucking threat. I see it as part of what we're doing. I embrace what this guy is doing. This guy is promoting what I promote, and that is surgery is a last resort. If you can shave your head, you've beaten this process. We just happened to deal with, and I started this program because I was not equipped emotionally to be him, that guy, the guy that started Bald Cafe. I wish that I was, because I would have probably been a much happier person when I was younger.
Yep.
So, I guess the bottom line is just take your time, dude. I think Joe's right about the age, but I mean, he's right. I actually think that most 23-year-olds are not emotionally equipped to make a decision to have such a profound type of cosmetic surgery, which will affect you in a way. It's not like getting a nose job or a chin implant or, something else done. This is a lifelong commitment.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
All right, man. So okay. I hope that helped.
Oh, yeah, some really helpful advice, so cheers for that. That's good.
Okay, man. Well, listen, thanks for the call. Good luck.
Real quick, Jordan, I want to ask you, how did you call into the show? Are you calling through Skype, or are you using some other way to call us?
Just called. I used the UK number, which you've got on the description of the
Great.
video.
Awesome. Okay, good to know.
All right,
Thanks
dude.
for
Listen,
that.
thanks a lot for the call.
All right.
Take
guys.
care.
Thank you very much.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. We are live. Give us a call here at The Bald Truth. If you have any questions, concerns about your hair loss, I will take your calls in a second. We have one line open. The rest of the board is full. But I do think it's really important for all the young guys to know, because they're going to go on YouTube and they're going to see these influencers talk about their hair transplants who got them at a very young age. And I can say sadly for these guys, a lot of them will end up in a not great position when they're 35 years old. That is the reality. That is not there yet for them. I do believe they are trying to help you in many cases, but I just don't think they have enough experience. They are not old enough. They have not been through this long enough and actually in the industry, and have seen enough patients who have started young, and then at 35 years old, they wish to God they never had surgery. Let's see who this is. Go ahead, Joe. What are you going to say?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Don't get frustrated.
I'm not.
Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is Robert from Chicago.
Robert, man, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
What's up?
I'm doing great. Thanks, guys. Hey, listen, so I'm 53 years old. I've been fighting this thing for about 20 years. I had 2 strips and 1 FUE and a bunch of other, potions on top of my head. I'm doing pretty good right now. But question is, all the guys at the gym are going for this TRT, testosterone replacement therapy and that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, is this just going to blow the hair out of my head? How is this going to affect me, with the DHT levels and all that other kind of stuff? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to be 55 years old.
Right.
I would love. Now, I'm very lucky for whatever reason. I have, a lot of strength. I have relatively low body fat. I have a very, I would say, normal young person sex drive, or relatively young person sex drive. That's all great. Most people start you on TRT or doctors because people complain about being a little lethargic or having a lower libido, whatever. But the reality is, if I were to get on TRT, I'm pretty muscular now. I would be fucking jacked. I think about my friends who are on TRT. They are so fucking jacked, and they don't have to work out half as hard. And they are lean and vascular, and I'm like, I think to myself, I don't know how long I'm going to live, so why not take these fucking basically steroids and be jacked for the rest of my life? And the only reason is because I've been able to save my fucking hair for 25, 30 years. I don't want to risk that. I know guys who have never shed a hair in their life. I had a neighbor, in Calabasas. I'm walking my fucking dog. I see this guy who was well-built. He was once actually a professional baseball player, but was thin. This guy looked like the fucking Rock. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he told me. And that got me kind of excited. I was thinking about doing it. 3 months later, he calls me. He's losing his hair for the first time in his life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this was not a guy who was genetically susceptible at a younger age to hair loss. If you've been fighting it for 20 years, I got to tell you, that is a razor's edge that I don't know if I would want to get on.
Right, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, but,
Oh, he's not going to listen.
thinking-
He's not. I hear him. He's trying to figure it out. Go ahead.
He's trying to justify it.
No, just the biology behind it. I thought, DHT goes with testosterone, but if you block the receptors, that's what you're doing with the minoxidil or the finasteride. I just didn't know the biology behind it, if it would affect, the DHT levels.
Well, here's the thing. There's different types of TRT treatment. Most physicians will put you on TRT treatment and also want you to utilize DHEA, right? And a lot of times, once you incorporate DHEA with your TRT, DHEA, and again, I'm not a physician, So I'm providing you information that I'm just privy to based on my years of experience in this field. DHEA seems to be a real culprit when it comes to TRT therapy as far as hair loss. What I suggested to this guy was to talk to his doctor about dropping the DHEA. He was able to stabilize his hair loss, and he was taking a little bit less testosterone. Now, I think he was using the roll-on stuff, which to me that's insane anyway, because then if you're with a woman, whatever it is, you got to be careful all the time. But he was able to, because he didn't have a strong predisposition, he was able to halt his hair loss, and it seems like the miniaturization reversed. Right now, he seems to be okay, and he's still essentially taking steroids. But you may be a different, person because you've been dealing with this for so long. Currently, you're blocking enough. The conversion of the 5-alpha reductase inhibitor is blocking the conversion of testosterone to DHT, and for your body, that's enough to halt your hair loss. But if you bring that testosterone up just a little bit, the drug may not work for you as well. That's just the way that it is. You may need, instead of blocking 70%, once you bring up the testosterone, you may need to block 85%, and that's not what's happening with the current dosage that you're taking. So then you're going to say, okay, let me up the dosage of finasteride, or maybe switch to dutasteride. Once you go down that route, man, it's a roller coaster. It could take you 2 years to recover, if you do.
Yeah. Well, all right. Makes sense.
I mean, how bad? I mean, you go to the gym. You're 53 years old. You're still a relatively young man. I mean, do you feel like you can't get yourself into the shape that you want?
I don't know. It's just that, my wife passed away like 10 years ago. I got 2 young boys, bringing them up. I'm working, keeping the house, doing like 10 things. I get home, I want to lay down in bed, and I just need a boost, I got things I got to do. I'm lazy. I don't want to be lazy. So
what about blow? I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. There are other ways to get a boost, and
we'll take that offline, Joe.
there are other ways to get a boost, but first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your loss, and I know that's got to be incredibly difficult. And I would say that anybody at any age going through what you went through, having to raise 2 kids yourself, having to work, would probably have trouble saying after that entire day wanting to get to the gym. The motivation probably it would not be there, even if you're 35 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, listen, it's always something to consider. But if you really want to maintain your hair, if it's something that you wouldn't be equipped to deal with, if you started to lose it once you started the TRT treatment, then I would put that into the equation. Now, if you're ready to possibly just shave your head at some point and you'd rather have a fucking jacked body and more energy, then that solves your problem.
Right, yeah. So it's either one or the other, it sounds like.
I would say that there are doctors who will call in who have I spoken to that try to treat patients who are dealing with hair loss and help guide them through TRT treatments. But for me, I wouldn't take the risk. Just like I would not risk, even though there's been no cases that I have seen of birth defects of guys who got their wives pregnant when they were on finasteride. I always suggest get off the drug a minimum of 1 month before trying to impregnate your wife, just so you don't have that in your mind, just so you have some peace of mind. I feel the same way, with TRT treatment. You don't know. I mean, you could say, was it the TRT treatment that made me lose hair, or was it just going to happen anyway?
Right, yeah.
So I, for me personally, that's the reason I don't do it, and that's the only advice I can give you.
Are you going to the gym at all, or are you just like that's part of the issue? You don't have time, so you're hoping TRT will help you boost up your energy levels.
Yeah, it's not that I don't have time. I lack the energy, right?
Yeah.
And
have you considered changing your routine to work out in the morning?
Yeah, I'm not a great morning guy. I could barely get down a cup of coffee, but it's just how I am. But yeah, there are other things I could do, and I'm just thinking about this, and guys I know are on it, and they're bragging about it. They say it's the best thing in the world, and I'm like, well, I don't want to lose my hair either. So,
well, I think one thing that you might want to consider is have your blood work done to see if you have any sort of deficiencies. That's a real possibility. But another thing that you can do is consider your nutrition level. Like I know you're busy and you're always on the go trying to raise your kids and everything, but if you can plan out your actual nutrition style, we'll say, and look at what you're eating and cut back on your sugars, cut back on your carbs, even go keto, I think that might be potentially the solution to your problem, because once you get through the fog of transitioning to keto, or a caveman diet as it used to be called, once you get through that fog that it can create, your energy level will skyrocket, and it will be consistent from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and you'll sleep like a baby. This is what I did 7 years ago. And I was strength training at the time, but it was transitioning through this that changed everything for me. And my energy level has been this, like I'm not so hardcore like I used to be about it, but my energy level is still really high all day long. And when I was in my early 30s, I used to have problems like when I worked a desk job. I'd have my lunch, and then about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's time for a nap at my desk, you know? So I've been through that. I understand it. And I think that barring regular exercise, your nutrition level can really address that for you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, I appreciate this, guys. Appreciate the advice.
All right, man. Well, listen, we wish you the best of luck. And I think Joe's advice about nutrition is really it's spot on, because I will tell you that I've been intermittent fasting for like probably a little over a year and a half. And the reality is, if I go back and I look at old videos, just even longer, but I mean, 5 years was, I would gain weight and lose weight, and I would be bloated from drinking and stuff like that. But since I've really changed my diet and way of eating, and kind of only eating within a relatively small window of the day, my energy's through the roof. I noticed on my training, I'm much stronger than I was. In general, I look better, unless I have like a heavy night of drinking, which, that happens. And I just feel probably younger than I did 10 years ago. So I think you should consider taking Joe's advice.
Okay, I will.
All right, man. Good luck.
Do that.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from? Hey, man, can you turn your computer down?
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
What's up? Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Jay from Wisconsin.
Jay from Wisconsin.
Hello,
What's
Jay.
happening, man?
I'm pretty good. How are you guys?
Not bad, we're doing a little show here.
Talking about
Good.
hair.
Yeah.
So what's happening?
Yeah,
what can we do for you?
I basically had two questions. I'm 21, first of all. I started finasteride about 4 months ago. I use Keeps, the little, the online prescription thing.
Yeah, another hair wellness brand.
Yeah. I use 1 milligram. I use minoxidil 5%. I dermarol, and I use ketoconazole shampoo. And so far I've noticed less hair fall. In the shower, probably like 50% less. I mean, I was mostly losing most of my hair in the shower. I'm talking like much more over than 100 hairs.
Sure.
A day. And now I'm probably around like 60, 70 at most, during the day. But so I think most of it is the finasteride. So I'm pretty happy about that. But, I'm trying to keep my hair for as long as possible, and I do a lot of research, and I'm seeing a lot of talk about these topical anti-androgens like Brazula or whatever, like the CB0301 and RU588 something. I don't know.
RU58841.
Yeah. I'm seeing talk about it, and it looks very promising. But I don't get why this isn't being talked about more. Why isn't this more over the counter? Why isn't this? It looks like it's doing a pretty decent job for most people.
Well, let's just put it this way: RU58841 has been talked about before social media.
Born.
Well, yes, before you were born, before social media, before message forums.
Oh.
We're talking about, there was a old news group called alt.baldspot back in the mid to late 90s. Everyone was talking about RU58841. It was a drug that was being tested by a French company by the name of Rousseau Pharmaceuticals. And it never came to market. And the reality is, all the RU58841 that is out there is essentially gray market. It's a product that has to be, in general, mixed on your own. It is something that is, you don't know what the fuck you're getting. And I have never known anybody in more than 22 years that I've been doing this, and 30 years that I've been dealing with hair loss and been where you are, and also in the infancy of the internet, who has had any long-term success with any of these products. And that is just the reality. What happens is there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of panic, there's a lot of bro science online that is not anything new. That's existed in this sad realm that we're stuck in since its inception. Joe, what do you think?
You said it perfectly. I mean, excuse me. This is part of just an ongoing thing that people have been doing for centuries, really, coming up with ways to pimp out solutions for hair loss, and RU581 is no different. Excuse me.
I keep putting the camera on me when you're talking. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with my Stream Deck.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
That's all right. But that's, when you have to mix something yourself, and the resources that you have to order this from are from websites that are kind of almost like back alley type of stores online. It really doesn't make any sense, because what you need to find is something that is, first off, safe. FDA approval helps to say that it's going to be somewhat safe. But you also have to look at something that's that can be replicated consistently. And so when you have to mix it yourself, or you have to get it from resources that you really don't know anything about, if they mix it for you,
like the Netherlands
you
or
don't know
China,
about the consistency. It's crazy stuff. And so, you want to deal with it now, but you got to realize that if you find something that works, you got to stick with it for decades. So how do you know this is going to be a reliable resource for you? Reliable source for the medication, reliable medication itself. There's so many factors that you got to look at. And
how do you know it's going to be a medication?
Yeah, how do you know it's going to be medication? How do you know it's, instead of white powder you got to mix, it's not flour that they threw into the bag to dilute it,
And who's going to sue them? Who's going to go after these companies if in fact you're getting something that's completely ineffective? Nobody.
Yeah.
This is how. Yeah. Listen, this is the reality. If any of these products really worked, they would all be on the fucking cover of Time magazine. This is fucking hair loss, my man. This is the biggest, epidemic. It's of biblical proportions. It affects so many people in this world. Mm-hmm. And you're young, I get it. And there are people who are going to be listening to this who are part of these message forums, who are part of these private buy groups and all this stuff that goes on out there. Sadly, in my view, you're all being conned. You're all being misled. Whatever results you're seeing online, I mean, how many great results have you seen online personally in message forms? Let me know.
There is just one guy who I've seen.
One guy.
He's a YouTuber. Yeah, he's pretty much grown like his hairline, it looks like, from his videos. And he's got like pictures of it and stuff. But yeah, as far as like YouTubers and stuff like that, I only know one guy, but I do see talk about it on like hair loss forums and stuff. Just not as much as like finasteride and stuff.
Well, listen, we don't mean to make you feel like you are. Put it this way: you're in the majority of young men who are desperate to get their hair back, who will do anything and go at basically look to anything for help. And now there are more resources than ever with YouTube. Sadly, there is a tremendous amount of misinformation. And it is possible that this guy is an anomaly who has done really well, who found a decent source of his RU58841. Or maybe he's doing a combination of treatments, and he doesn't really know what's working for him. But, and I can't speak to that because I don't know who this person is, and I don't know exactly what he's doing. But in general, all of you kids are wasting your time. And you should stick to what's working. You're obviously seeing a cessation of your hair loss using FDA-approved products. I'm not a particular fan of using both minoxidil and finasteride at the same time initially because you want to know what's working for you. But, if you see that it's working at this point, you're probably going to see, and you've only been doing it for 4 months, if you're already seeing a cessation of your hair loss, there's a good chance that it's going to get even better. So I would just stick to what you're doing and give it some time. It's only been 4 months.
Absolutely.
The fact that you're even seeing things slow down in 4 months is incredible.
All right, well,
it's only been 4 months? Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give it another 8 months minimum.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, that's good to hear because I'm on like a more diffuse thinner, so I mostly in the crown area, so I'm just kind of waiting it out for now.
If you're noticing results in 4 months, and results meaning that there's a cessation of your hair loss, that means you're a good responder.
Yeah, absolutely. Diffused hair loss patients tend to have a better visible result, a better turnaround than people that have more obvious loss, patches of loss, I guess you could say. So stick with it, man, and try to avoid the temptation of these bro science type of solutions because most of them have zero impact, and the ones that have any impact are anecdotal. So don't be in a rush to try everything. Stick with what works and give it a chance to really do its thing for you because you might wind up being pleasantly surprised.
All right. Yeah. Awesome.
All right, man. Well, listen, thank you for listening. I'm glad that you found us. And if you ever have any more questions, feel free to call.
Yeah, and thank you guys. You guys too. You guys really do help with this bull crap that I'm dealing with. So really appreciate everything you guys are doing too.
Thank you for that, and that's what we're here for. And again, anytime we're live, feel free to call in. You have any questions or you just want to talk about whatever you're feeling at the time. That's what the show's about.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, man. You got it.
Thanks for calling.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is James from Texas.
James, what's happening, my man?
James.
Hey,
how's it going?
How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Not bad. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are on. I'm excited. So,
cool. I know. I can see Joe's stoked, so I'm glad you're excited too.
Yeah.
So what's up, man?
Yeah. Well, the topic for today, I'm going to hopefully try to stay somewhat close to that, but I have an interesting question. Well, actually a few, but one of them has to do with the...
We'll be the judge if it's interesting or not, okay?
Yeah, that's very true. I'm sure you've heard it all, so... But one of them has to do with the number of grafts that are transplanted in one session. I wanted to get your thoughts and opinions on that, as far as like if there's like a limited number before you deplete or damage donor area in one session. Like, does it make a difference if you do, let's say, for example, 3,000 one session and then the same person does another 3 later time, or if you do 6,000 at once? Is it ultimately the same thing in terms of like the donor depletion and results, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends on the procedure. Are you talking FET or FUE? Because the answer is not the same.
Let's say, well, yeah, that's true. I guess more FUE. Let's say FUE, because FUE covers more, or it takes from a wider range. So I guess that would be the better question. Like, so FUE in 2 sessions or FUE in 1 session?
Well, I think first off, you have to identify whether or not 6,000 grafts are actually necessary. But let's, for the sake of argument, assume that they are. There is an argument as far as the donor region goes for taking out all at once. And the only argument that I can think of, actually, is that because I believe in taking from the widest extraction pattern possible, even for the smallest procedures, I believe that it would be better to visualize the overall final pattern of extraction if all of them were being taken at once. Because if you do 3,000 spread out and then come back again, it might not be as easy to really figure out what the pattern should be, because sometimes the spacing can kind of be difficult to gauge. But ultimately, for the bigger picture, I believe that a 6,000 graft FUE is unnecessary. I believe that even if it's done over a couple of days, I don't think it's necessary in almost any situation, for the sole reason of survival rates. And I can't say that having that many at once would create an environment where there would be a lower survival rate. But my concern is if you were to have a 6,000 graft surgery, and this does apply to FUT just as much as it does with FUE. If you were, for the bigger picture, if you were to have that much in one session, what happens if it doesn't grow well? You're fucked. That's what happens. Because that second surgery, instead of just continuing down the path that you started, is now being performed as a mulligan to redo that first surgery. Whereas if you'd taken it slower and maybe done 3,000 grafts in one session, then you're in a better position to gauge the final result of that one procedure. If it doesn't work out to the way that you want it, you still have donor hair to address that region if you decide to try it again. But the great thing is you have options. If you do a 6,000 graft FUE, and in many cases a 6,000 graft FUT, and if it doesn't work out, you're done. You're absolutely done. Now, the one caveat on that is if you do perform a 6,000 grafts FUT, and just for the sake of argument, none of them grow. It's an absolute disaster. FUE is still an option for maybe a couple thousand more grafts to at least do something. But ultimately, I think that there is an argument for bigger sessions in clinics that are experienced with such sessions. But even clinics that are experienced with big sessions, they've got cases where it didn't work out well and patients are very upset with them. Every clinic has this. And I think that it's in your best interest, if you were looking for something like that, to maybe put the brakes on. And if someone's recommending such a big session, say, well, let's break this up into 2. Let's not do one at once.
Yeah, I guess so. Obviously, this one's primarily focused on like top 25 doctors. One of which Hassan and Wong too. There was a post that I saw.
It was Dr. Wong, just for clarity's sake. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. There's a post that I saw that transplant performed by, I believe it's Hassan, where he did 8,402 grafts, and there's a man that has like, he almost has a Norwood 7, and then before and then after, it's like a full head of hair. You would never notice that he had hair loss, and it's a lot of grafts in one session. I guess I wanted to go possibly talk to someone like that. I guess does it depend on, like, I'm sure it depends on the doctor, right? Of course. But
yeah, of course. But like that patient, I think I know which one you're talking about. He's in Spain. Yeah, it was a beautiful result. Absolutely. Does it happen with every big case? No. I mean, it's, he had the perfect characteristics. It was obviously a fantastic performance by Dr. Hassan and his team, but he's one guy. There are other patients that have big cases with great outcomes, for sure. But I think that in your case, specifically, you shouldn't even be looking at those kinds of cases because you don't have that kind of hair loss. If I recall correctly, you've got diffused hair loss, and your medication is actually thickening it up and making it stronger. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I have diffuse thinning. I think it's actually just halted where it's at. So if you look closely, you can kind of see the Norwood 7 pattern. However, I haven't continued to lose, but I do have that Norwood 7 pattern around the back of my head and the thinning on top.
Let me tell you, James, these are all good questions, and the reality is I think Joe just made a really interesting point that, you are a guy that really shouldn't even be thinking about this shit. And the truth be told, even if I was had significantly less hair, there is no fucking way that I would go in for a huge session of anything. You do not want to risk, in my view, your precious donor area, because if you have one failure, like Joe indicated, you are fucked. And there are a lot of home runs out there. You see them all over the internet, and you see, Victor Hassan's home runs, and you see other home runs from large sessions. That's great. These guys are, they're very lucky. But if that didn't work out, then they would be sitting there with their fucking dicks in their hands. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, just like a really awesome result. I mean, these are just like questions I'm not, maybe I'm sure people have already asked that in terms of like one session or like a mega session, but yeah. I guess another question too that was I was curious about was, obviously it's all about the donor area. So the number of grafts or the ultimate result you can have is basically dependent on your donor area, unless you, doesn't happen very often, which is rare, but some do tap into body hair. I saw that. I think I saw that Joe had someone from his chest onto his head, and I guess my question is that I guess it's commonly said that DHT oftentimes, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I am wrong, that a DHT oftentimes promotes body hair growth, or you're more likely to grow beard or facial hair or body hair with DHT. So on that same token, on the flip side of that someone who is taking medicine, what's it called? DHT.
Finasteride.
Yeah, so finasteride.
5-alpha reductase inhibitors. Yeah.
There you go. 5-alpha reductase inhibitor to lower the DHT. That same person has body hair transplanted onto their head. How does that medicine affect the body hair? Does it thin it out, or
I'm going to let Joe answer it because he's been through it. But I will tell you that you will know. I mean, that's why I believe that anybody should be on medication for a minimum of a year before they even consider having hair transplant, because you'll know how much body hair is affected. And the body hair that is not affected usually will not start to become affected later in life. So I'll give you, for instance, I definitely believe that while I was never a very hairy person, I have less, I noticed I had more hair on my hands prior to using finasteride. Now I am essentially, I always say it's like a 10-year-old Swedish boy. I am, or some Asian kid. I am just walking around with like 4 chest hairs, barely any hair on my hands, not a lot of arm hair. And what I noticed was just a relatively minor change in arm hair, and almost whatever hair that I had on the side of my hands, that just disappeared. Chest hair, I didn't really notice a significant change because I never had much to begin with. But what I have, I maintained. So, Joe, you've had this done.
Yeah, just for clarification, it was a very small test procedure back in 2006 before anyone was really doing body hair on a regular basis. And there was some good growth in one spot, and it's still growing to this day. And DHT inhibitors has done nothing to affect that. It's interesting. Some of the more prominent, or I'll say more experienced body hair practitioners will recommend not taking Proscar or dutasteride if they're going to be having a body hair transplant. A lot of doctors now are recognizing that there's this theory called the theory of donor dominance, where hair from the donor area will continue to grow in any place that's transplanted, just as it did when it was in its original donor location. That's not so much the case. We are seeing indications that the recipient area can influence how the hair grows. And I believe it was actually Dr. Woods that in Australia that first pointed this out with one of his earlier documented cases of body hair to the scalp. And it was I think it was a repair patient that he didn't have any donor hair left in his scalp, and so he did like a couple thousand body hairs, chest hairs. And then he measured how long these hairs grew, and they grew significantly longer on the scalp than they did on his chest. Spencer remembers that case well. And I think that the DHT sensitivity, the DHT benefits that body hair gets, I think that disappears. Wait, did I say that right? Yeah. No. Yes. It disappears. It doesn't apply when it's on the scalp. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, I want to say something that, and we're talking about DHT. Now, this is a relatively new finding, and I'm seeing more papers written about it, and there's also more products being sold that are making claims that inhibiting DHT through natural supplementation has nothing to do with hair, but actually helps to retard the aging process in the skin and creates more elastin and collagen in the skin. Now, this is not to sound obnoxious, but I have been told throughout the years that essentially, for whatever reason, and I take sun, I used to smoke cigarettes, I have been known to have a questionable relationship with alcohol. For whatever reason, my skin doesn't really change that much. I do have wrinkles, but it's not significant for a guy who's going to be 55 years old. I think there may be something to this. So to me, if you want to stop your hair loss and potentially retard the aging process, I personally think that 5-alpha reductase inhibitors might be the first known true anti-aging drug. And they're going to be probably writing more about this in the not-too-distant future. So I wouldn't worry about how it affects your body hair. You're going to know if it affects your body hair, eventually. But, if you're doing well with it, like you said, you're probably going to be happy with the long-term results if you're a good responder. So,
yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of the anti-aging, because, maybe I'm wrong about this, but a lot of times when I see if it's true that the DHT affects body hair growth and facial hair growth, a lot of times I see some men or boys who have like that thinner type of body style, and they can't grow a beard, they don't grow any body hair, and they have a thick full head of hair, but they also have like more, I guess that, I don't want to say feminine characteristics, but more of like that pretty boy type of look, to where they're just like, I guess they look naturally young. They're not as how do I say?
Are you trying to say that I'm not masculine?
No, I mean, I'm sure you can grow a beard, right? You can grow a beard.
I can.
Okay, yes. For someone like, for example, like a Justin Bieber type of look, you know, like that's not someone you think of like a man. You know, when you think of like, you think someone who's like has a full hair all over their body and they're balding and they got big old muscles and they got a beard. You know, that's not the same person as a Justin Bieber. I don't think Justin Bieber could ever be that person. But to his benefit, you know, he will always, I mean, I don't want to say always, but he is benefiting from looking younger than most people. And there's a lot of men who are like that, who have a full head of hair and they may never lose any hair. So I think that there's truth to that DHT.
Well, I think that here's the thing. For these guys who aren't losing their hair, essentially what it means is that their hair is not genetically predisposed to be sensitive to DHT. It doesn't mean that they have lower levels of DHT. So these kids who look like Justin Bieber, who have that look, their DHT may be going through the roof, but they are just not sensitive. Their hair follicles are not genetically sensitive to DHT at a younger age. Now, that may change when the person becomes 50 years old. That's the thing about hair loss. You hear these guys, first of all, when I hear things like prematurely balding, there's no such thing. You are susceptible to hair loss as soon as you hit puberty, period. That is the reality of androgenetic alopecia. But for those who believe they're safe after the age of 35 or 40 because they saved all their hair, that's bullshit too. I've known guys who started at 45 or 50, and they become Norwood Sixes in like 2 years.
Yeah,
So
it can happen at any time.
At any time, we are we are all fucking ticking time bombs. That's why I always laugh when you see these things, or like there are like you hear women who are saying, you know, they would never go out with a balding guy, or they put out ads. I'm dating myself. I was going to say classified ads, but you know, like, you know, Match.com, and you know, that would actually be a prerequisite, guy with a full head of hair. And you think to yourself, these women have no fucking idea what they're getting involved in. They're going to marry some guy with a full head of hair who could be bald in a year. That's the reality. Right. So I certainly understand what you're saying, and there does seem to be this subset of guys who have potentially less masculine features or less hair. They have full heads of hair, and they maintain that through a lifetime. It really has little to do with DHT, because a lot of these guys, if you measure the DHT, it would be at a normal or even high level. They're just not sensitive.
They just got good genetics, I guess. Yeah, everybody got a lot better genetics.
Well, they just don't have they don't have the gene. They don't have the hair loss gene, which is, you know, fucking curse, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. One last thing. I know you talked about influencers before, or other YouTubers. I know a lot of respect for Bald Cafe, you know, people like that. But there's someone out there who may not be as known, but his name is, maybe you've come across him, but he claims that he's recovered all of his hair. And some of it, you know, it's kind of sketchy, but I wanted to get your thoughts and opinions. Maybe someday you can kind of, I know it's going to take some time to watch his videos, but his name is Somebody Alex. Have you heard of him before? He in his videos, he had really diffuse thinning, and then he says he started taking medicine, and then he talks a lot about scalp inflammation, but I don't know, to me, I don't know, maybe that sounds like whatever, but he literally has like a full head of hair, and it's thick, but at one point he had really diffuse thinning, and he was like going bald. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. His name is Somebody Alex. It's on the YouTube, and I guess that'll be my last.
I haven't, you know, I have to be honest with you. You know, Joe is the guy that essentially brought me into the whole YouTube world. I just had not had the patience to pay attention to it, and unless Joe pointed somebody out to me, I'm not even searching shit for hair loss on YouTube. I know that I should, but it's just so aggravating that I choose not to. Joe, do you know who this guy's talking about?
Never heard of him before. I found him on YouTube. I found his channel. First red flag is his free ebook. But
yeah,
you know, it is what it is. Yeah, I don't know.
That's
I mean,
a turn off for sure. But some of his videos, like he posts pictures of when he was like really diffuse thinning, and he talks about like in 2008 and when he back in the day, I guess years ago, when he was like really losing his hair. But you can kind of see like the timeline, and it kind of seems like legit, but at the same time, it's like, wow, that's like only if we could all do that, you know.
I knew a guy years ago who used to talk about plucking his body hair and regrowing his hair. And there were a lot of people that were trying to follow this guy. This is before YouTube. And there were images on different sites. And, I mean, you know, this is the reality of this fucked up disease of the spirit called hair loss. Maybe this particular guy was somehow able to solve his issue. Maybe there was an issue that he was dealing with that caused him to have diffuse hair loss, whether it was a thyroid condition or it was some other, maybe there was some sort of inflammatory issue where he changed his diet and took certain medication that did help him. Maybe he wasn't actually dealing with genetic or androgenetic alopecia, but it could have been another form of diffuse hair loss. Who knows? You just don't fucking know. Now, I'm not saying this guy is trying to mislead anybody. I have to take a look at what he's doing. But that's the reality. You have to look at the general population of hair loss sufferers and what they deal with. And that is the majority of people who call this broadcast and the majority of people out there who are living in this world dealing with hair loss. If there were a consistent way that worked across the board for people to stop their hair loss and regrow their hair, not using the medication that we know can help, then there'd be a lot less people out there walking around with hair loss. That's it. If this guy had the cure, there's no doubt that we would not be doing what we're doing, and he would be huge. Right, Joe?
Once you send the form, you'll be taken to a page where you can schedule a time for your session with someone on our team. Rapid regrowth. A rapid regrowth session. So, yeah, God bless him. He's making a buck. That's all I can say. But yes, what you said, I agree 100%.
Yeah. It's just hard to dispute like his before and afters, and he's consistent with his videos, and so I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. But yeah,
well, dude, you know what you can do as an experiment to the program. You should join this guy. You should pay this guy and see what he has to offer and share it with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But yeah, like Joe said, that is sketchy. Anytime there's like an ebook or it's like if you really want to help us, like why don't you just tell us what it is? Like why do we gotta like? I mean, I'm not trying to be. If you truly want to help, I understand that we all need to make money. We all have to have a source of income. But when you're like kind of leading with your like either ads or
well, let's put it this way. I found a way to get information to the public without ever charging the public a dime. Now, when my books were initially published, of course, Simon & Schuster and Contemporary Books sold the books in bookstores and through Amazon, and I made money from being a published author. That's a different story. I didn't self-publish. I didn't have some sort of ebook that I'm trying to get anybody to purchase. I had to be vetted by a legitimate source to write a legitimate book. And then I got on the radio, and we had sponsors to the program. That's how radio stations make their money. But I never sold anything to the public. All the information that we provide is always free of charge. So if someone really wants to get information out there and it's legitimate, there are ways to figure out to make an income and be in this field and help people.
Yeah. It's just like, what's the difference between his claim versus what everyone else is claiming? Like that other caller, I don't know if he brought up Brazula or something like that, but there's always something, there's always, depending on the time of the year or the year, there's always something that's new and the latest and the greatest. But it's like, what's different from this than from yesterday?
And why wouldn't these guys contact us? Why wouldn't they contact the American Hair Loss Association and say, look, I think there's I've really discovered something, and maybe you could contact I don't know, Angela Cristiano from Columbia University, or any of the other physicians and scientists that we have direct contact with, and say, look, why don't you check this out? This guy may have something here. I would do that in a second.
Yeah.
Like the money that could be made from that, where you like have Angela Cristiano come in and actually talk to you about what you're doing and try to recreate it in a lab, whatever you're doing, and then sell that shit.
Dude,
that's when you make money.
I would partner with this guy. I would say, look, I will make this happen. We'll make it legitimate. You keep 60%. I'll take 40%. And I will make this guy one of the wealthiest men in the world. Why hasn't he reached out to us?
I think that, look, James, it comes down to this. Everything out there is useless, except for the FDA-approved medications we have. Eating right, low sugar intake. I'm a big believer in that. Keeping inflammation down, internal inflammation. And potentially some treatments that are being looked at today, like variations of PRP, exosomes, after other people have been the guinea pigs, so that you can see how this works out. These guys, again, this is bro science. E-books, fill out the form, and I'll get back to you, and I'll show you this special approach that I've taken, and it only costs you $29.95 a week, or whatever the angle is. God bless them. God bless capitalism, but be smart, man. None of this is worth a shit. None of it.
Yeah.
Brizula, not worth a shit.
And we're all fucking suckers, because let me tell you, if I wasn't in this field, when I first started, I did everything that was out there. I bought everything. I tried everything. I hung upside down with gravity boots. I fucking put cayenne pepper in my hair. I bought the Helsinki formula. I went up to Canada to get this these electrodes put on my fucking head. I did everything.
Yeah,
and you know what?
I can relate to that.
It's full fucking circle. I see these guys on YouTube. I see what's happening. Full circle. It doesn't change, even though we know that there's stuff that works now, which I didn't have when I was 21 years old.
Yeah, but Spencer, gravity's different than it was back when you're doing it.
Exactly. So is the improved. Listen, you're talking about sugar. I wrote a chapter in the original The Bald Truth on a sugar balancing diet, a low glycemic index diet. I had Barry Sears write 2 pages in the book about the zone diet, which at the time was revolutionary and the first low androgen index, commercial diet on the market. I believe in that. Yep. I talked about inflammation. I believe in that. But I have to tell you, I don't give a shit who you are. It will help you. And it could benefit you while you're taking medication. But eventually, no matter how well you take care of yourself, your genetics are going to take over. You're going to lose your hair unless you intervene with medication.
Yeah, I agree. Ultimately, I agree. I may say something controversial right now, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyways. I haven't been around too long, not compared to you, like in terms of the hair loss industry, for about 2 years, but I tried a lot of things. I started with the vitamins or whatever, and ultimately, like Joe said, in my opinion, I think that the only proven possible solution is medication at an early stage, meaning like, I think that once you have lost some hair, it may be too late. And I'm speaking from my own experience because I have been taking finasteride and then eventually switched over to dutasteride. Yeah, I've prevented further, but I haven't recovered. So if I were to give advice to anyone, and I wish that I had gotten this advice prior to or beforehand, before I even started losing hair, but unfortunately that didn't happen. I had to find out the hard way. I would have wished that someone would have taught me, hey, take medicine before you start to lose hair. That way you can keep what you have. But anyways, that, and then in my opinion, I think is hair transplants. The medicine and the hair transplant.
Why is that controversial? That's reality. That's what we
because
preach.
there's things out there like the microneedling. There's laser helmets. There's PRP. There's the exosomes, and I understand like there's potential here and there, but it's all just like little fluff, you know. At the end of the day, ultimately, like you said, the standing upside down, nobody's going to do that. Even if it does work, nobody's going to do it long term. What are you going to do? I mean, for the rest of your life, you're going to continue doing that?
Listen, honestly, if that did work, I would. If I knew that all I had to do was hang upside down for an hour a day to save my hair, I would. That's what I find interesting about people who complain about their weight, and they can't maintain their physique, or women who are always complaining about their weight. Let me tell you something. If you tell a guy or a woman losing their hair that all they have to do is run 5 miles a day and eat a specific diet to keep the hair, they'd fucking do it. Because I know that I would.
That's right.
Yeah, that's hypothetical though, but we all know that doesn't work. And so that's what I'm saying is like there's people out there they don't even worry about hair loss. That's the last thing on their mind. And here we are trying to hours or 30 minutes a day applying minoxidil, whatever, twice a day. And there's people who never even think about that, and they have other things to worry about, and we're out here just trying to keep what we have.
Yeah, but there's also guys out there that are hanging weights from their cocks. I mean, that's just the reality. The people worry about different things in life, and we know what works when it comes to hair loss. Sadly, there are people who are actually truly wasting time. It's not just putting minoxidil on and taking finasteride, or maybe doing PRP treatments a few times a year, which we know can help. Or even using a laser cap, which it's still questionable. There is some evidence that it works, but there are guys out there like the caller before you, and we'll take a call in a second, guys. So hold on, who are spending money and spending time mixing RU58841 and other gray market products that they're buying from fucking China or the Netherlands or Germany or from somebody's fucking basement. And that's a fucking waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What really upsets me is that I wish people just cut the BS. Like I said, it took me 2 years, but there's people out there who are just discovering their hair loss. But then you have, I'm gonna bring up someone's name, but. You kind of put yourself out there making YouTube videos, so that's what happens. People are going to talk. So there's a guy, obviously Hairliciously, right? We all know who that is, but he always posts titles and potential cures, exclamation points, and exciting. It's clickbait, right? You click on it, and you think, okay, what is this? Maybe potential and coming up in the future. But right off the bat, as soon as this video starts, hey, microneedling, this does this. Go buy yourself a derma roller from my website, or laser helmet. Hey, I'm also selling this laser cap. Go get it from my website. Take this anti-DHC natural, blah blah blah.
Who I judge?
Meanwhile, he's having hair transplants.
You know who I judge? Listen, I hate to say it. It's sad to me that this happens. And it's sad to me that there are people out there who are dealing with hair loss themselves who are willing to just go out there and, I'm not going to say this guy's necessarily misleading anybody because, maybe he believes in all this stuff. But the whole thing is just so unfortunate to me. That's just how I feel about it. I think the guy's entertaining to some degree from what I've seen. I think that he has provided some decent advice. I'm not a fan of stores and all of these links and promo codes and all this stuff. But you know what? Sadly, the people to blame are the guy. Well, I'm not going to say to blame. The guys that are falling for this shit, they're not really doing their research, man. They're not taking the time to really, because it's out there. The information's out there. All you do is have to put in certain keywords. You're going to find WebMD if you decide to look at it. And you're going to read stuff from the American Hair Loss Association. And you're going to read that this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
Period. I don't know. Listen, there are doctors out there that believe that derma rolling can help. I've seen some, so-so results as far as people growing some vellus hair. But Jesus Christ, come on. Be logical, guys.
Yeah, he has a derma roll in one hand. Meanwhile, he's getting a transplant, on top of his head. It's like, I want to ask him, like, so did any of this work for you, or why are you selling this? Or if it was so effective, why are you getting hair transplants or second hair transplants or whatever?
Well, I can tell you this. There's one doctor in particular that contacted me that did state, and I'm not going to say who this so-called influencer is, essentially was saying that, I have these many followers. And he wanted a free hair transplant. And the doctor said, I don't mind giving you a discount, but I can't do it for free. This guy, whoever it was, who's an influencer, said he wants it for free. He ended up not going to this doctor. This doctor was here in Southern California. And he ended up going to another doctor in another part of the world. However, this is the way it works, guys. Period. This is the way that it works. And if someone is out there getting free surgeries, if someone is out there, promoting doctors who have gone to places like Turkey and they're promoting and they have codes underneath their website, underneath their on their channel, saying, go to this guy, go to this guy. Come on. What do you think's happening?
Yeah, it's all
James?
marketing.
Oh.
Listen, I tell you guys, I founded an organization, has a lot of doctors, have been doing it for over 20 years. I'm not going to lie, made a lot of money. That's just the reality of it. But I will never tell you guys to click on their fucking page or to have a consultation with anybody that's your choice. This is a group of guys who are doing things consistently. My message is surgery is the last resort. If you could avoid it, don't have it done. Not click on this code and say that SK sent you. That's I don't know. It frustrates the hell out of me. But I'm glad that the young guys call in to talk about this, because it's important that anyone who finds this broadcast, and hopefully you guys are going to subscribe to the new channel that we're putting up with the clips of the show. The more people who subscribe, the more YouTube sees this stuff, and the more people who are doing searches and who are going to these other influencers, they're going to see us on the side of those videos. They're going to find the truth. So, James, we're going to take another call. Always appreciate you calling in. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks for hearing me out. I'm glad I got that off my chest. I'm out of questions, but I was more of a venting session than anything. So,
listen,
thanks for listening.
It's good, man. I appreciate the call. Always good hearing from you. Take care.
Yeah, you
Take
too.
care, buddy.
Thank you. All right.
All right, we want to take one last call, Joe?
One last call.
Okay. Joe's a little testy today. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
It's Morty from Brooklyn.
Holy shit,
Morty from Brooklyn.
How are you, man?
That's right.
Actually, from Brooklyn. He's in there.
Yes, I am in Brooklyn.
You made it, right?
That's right. I've left Florida. And I made it. Left Florida in the rearview mirror.
So are you calling about the penis weights, or did you want to speak about something else?
No. My penis weights are working really well, actually.
Oh, good.
I come out of the men's room and, it's dragging behind me. It works great.
Good for you.
Anyway.
Awesome. Good for you.
Yeah. So I'm calling because of a conversation that Spencer and I had concerning the misuse of logos by certain doctors for the American Hair Loss Association and the IHRS.
What I would ask you to do is, and it's important that you do this, don't name any names, because it's definitely not something that we want to get involved in. I did contact the person who essentially stole my trademarks and used them to leverage their credibility. But at this point, we don't want to put it out there because, I'm moving forward with something.
Good. All right. Well, I'm going to let it alone. What I will do is, for the listeners, make sure just because you see these logos on a website doesn't necessarily mean these people are members. Check back to the website, check back to the RAHRS website, and make sure that your doctor is named on the IHRS website. Don't simply take the logo for granted.
And also the American Hair Loss
well
Association, because this particular person who is in the United States, you know, a lot of times, you know, it's happened here in the U.S. There was a physician in Florida. This happened to be a physician in New York. There are physicians in other parts of the country who have stolen and have utilized the logos. They claim that it's a mistake of their web person. Now, what webmaster is going to go and find these seals and put them on their site? They don't know what the fuck they mean, you know? But for the most part, this happens in other parts of the world, and it's very prevalent. It happens in India. It happens in Turkey. It happens in Germany. It happens in Australia. And we usually have to have our attorneys contact these practices and send a cease and desist.
Yeah. It was kind of a funny story. Joe, you weren't privy to this, so I'm going to share it. So I have a lovely friend here, my lovely young friend, who went in for something called a silhouette lift, I think it's called. And she went to this doctor whom she had discovered, I believe it was on Fox TV morning show or Good Morning America, one of these.
Always a bad move, first of all. If you see the doctor on television, 9 out of 10 times it's just because they have a good publicist.
Yeah. So, you know, the thing of it is people often mistake these shows for news and mistake the people who are on them for journalists when in reality this is merely entertainment. And people need to realize just because someone is on Good Morning America doesn't necessarily mean that the guest was investigated in any way, shape, or form.
Well, look at Dr. Oz called a doctor who is not very well known, who's more well known online. One of the, what did he say he was? The premier.
One of the premier hair restoration physicians in the country.
In the world, if not the most experienced or the best in the world.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
So the funny thing was is that I saw her. This was day 3 after the procedure, and she had a really nasty greenish bruise that ran from her chin to her cheek in a straight line. So I don't know how many threads she put in her, but it was definitely the one.
Well, I will tell you this, and again, I always interrupt people's stories, especially yours, but you know, because I understand, and you know, I've been researching cosmetic surgery, aesthetic plastic surgery for a very long time. I'm getting into the field slowly, but I am not a particular fan of anything that is trademarked. There's a name to it that physicians all over the country are involved in. And are attached to a website, whether it's, you know, for instance, in this field, there is a plastic surgeon who made a post the other day that's talking about the NeoGraft procedure as if it's a procedure.
Yeah, well, that was very common.
Right. So, you know, all of these internal threads that have these kind of cone hooks to them that are being used for different parts of the body to lift and to pull, and, you know, some of them are being named, and they're being trademarked as a name. People have to pay a license to utilize that name. And they're being marketed through this particular the website of the people that are manufacturing these threads. It's always something to be wary of, in my view.
100%.
Yeah. So anyway, so she went and she had it done. It's a bruise. Hopefully it will fade like bruises do.
It will.
Hopefully she'll have a good result. She said, "Oh, but I talked to the doctor about you." She told me. She said, "Oh yeah, she does hair too. She's fantastic." She tells me. "Oh, really?" So we're sitting in a coffee shop, and we pop up on the website, and I see the logos there, and I'm like, "What?" And because you guys know me, I've been talking to you now upwards of 2 years. I know everybody on that list that's in New York. I know them by name, and this name did not seem familiar to me. So I went back to the IHRS website, I looked it up, and sure enough, the name was not there. So I told her, I said, "Look, this person's not here. I don't like this." And that's pretty much when I reached out to Spencer and told him. So,
well, you know, what was interesting is you did not, I had 2 people in the same week tell me. We'd already reached out to this particular doctor to let them know that there's some sort of mistake here, whatever. And then you contact me. I was like, holy shit, this is really weird. Now, I just want to make it clear that it does not mean that this physician isn't really a great hair transplant surgeon. None of it means anything. All it means is exactly what you're saying, Morty, is if someone's carrying that seal on their website, just check with the IHS or the American Hair Loss Association to ensure that they are part of it. Now, it's possible there's a doctor that was a part of it, that is no longer a part of it, that still uses the seals. There's all types of reasons for this. But just check.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all you got to do. Just check.
That's it. So, yeah, I wanted to mention that. The other thing I wanted to mention was I finally got a chance to meet up with Dr. John Cole. He was in New York literally a week from yesterday. And it was nice to finally meet him in the flesh, and we had a good chat for an hour, and he's a pretty nice guy in person. So
he's a very pleasant guy.
Pretty cool. Yeah. He was actually performing exosome injections at that office that day, and I basically told his assistant that I wasn't interested in the exosomes. I just wanted to do an actual face-to-face consult because I had done a phone consult with Dr. Cole about a year ago. So, and since he was in town, I figured I'd go ahead and see him. So he is now, I think, a face-to-face doctor number 5 for me. So it was.
You're doing it right, man. You're doing it right.
Yeah. I want to make sure, man. He's actually toying with the idea of opening a practice here, believe it or not. So that should be interesting. If he does, I mean, he definitely jumps to the top of my short list. I mean, it was a good consult. We talked a little bit about exosomes. I mean, I don't want to rehash what was said on the show earlier. The interesting thing that he said that for me, he said that it was unlikely that I would get a spectacular result, but he said that there is a chance, and he said that it would be a spectacular transformation if it worked, which that's like saying, well, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a trolley car. But but all in all, I mean, like I said, he's definitely up there. My new job here in Brooklyn is my old South Florida job, so I'm working remotely. I'm working from home. I'm actually going to need to talk to you guys a little bit about what it's like to work from home because I've never done it before.
Sure.
See how you deal with the life of not having coworkers and stuff like that. So,
well, did you want to talk to us now about that?
It's up to you. I mean, this is the show. I don't want to distract from the topic at hand, but what the heck?
Real quickly, it's incredibly isolating. It's incredibly lonely, and that's why we drink.
During the show.
Yeah. No. The good news is, first of all, you have to be very disciplined. Now, you're actually working for a company, so you have to get things done. I have been working for myself since I've been a very young man. I've only really had one job, and that's actually wild that I just said that, but that's the truth. So I've been an entrepreneur my entire life since I've been 19 years old. But with that said, it's very difficult to maintain your work ethic if you are just working for yourself and no one else is depending on you. So you got to be really good.
My experience transitioning from working in an office for most of my life, or working for others for most of my life, into self-employment 5 years ago. If you love what you do, the solitude is not an issue. I actually prefer it because when you work in an office where you share an office space and you have an office mate, and he's a mouth breather when he eats, and he has no problem clipping his nails while you're on the phone, you're happy to get the fuck out of an office. Okay, that's just one scenario that I used to deal with. But no, I think that if you love what you do, then it's a benefit to be on your own because you're not going to run into distractions, or at least distractions that are not of your own making. So, for instance, when I used to work in an office environment in this industry, for the past almost 20 years, the issue became one of my own usefulness, where I'm kind of a jack of all trades. Like I can do a little bit of everything well enough, and so when I would be in the middle of doing something, someone would need my help with something. Technicians would have a question about a patient, or one of the doctors would need me to come film something. Or it's like it's so distracting and so unproductive. So to be in a situation where I love what I do, there's a lot of stuff I do behind the scenes that have nothing to do with my YouTube channel or my website. So, like, I do work with doctors behind the scenes on some stuff they're dealing with. I love it. And so the only challenge for me is when I create my own distractions. Like if I'm following, some sort of political issue in the industry, and I'm dealing when we're interacting with doctors, or if I'm helping my wife with something, because sometimes I help her with stuff. But for the most part, it's great. I can pick up my laptop.
You're breaking up, Joe. I'm just going to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt you. You didn't mention YouPorn.
Sorry, breaking up. What?
You talk about needing to be disciplined at this stage in our lives, man.
Yeah.
No, but the reality is, it really takes a tremendous amount of discipline to work from your home and to be successful. It's not easy. Yeah. Now, when you're working remotely, it's different because you're required to do the work. Otherwise, you don't keep your job.
Yep.
So I don't think
that, my friend, is the challenge.
But there is a little bit of isolation, like especially if you. If you're working for a company that's in another state, you're not going to be invited to Christmas parties. You're not going to be part of that work culture, the happy hour culture. I was never a part of that. I never really. I've been to maybe one office Christmas party, and it was not my office, obviously. When I was doing the radio program, I had a staff at Westwood One or at CBS, or when I was in New York. I would take them out, and we would have our own Christmas party. But that was it, man. I was never really part of any of that culture.
I get you.
And in a way, I feel like I've missed out. But in a way, it's like, you know what? The working man's a sucker.
You didn't miss out. Trust me.
Yeah, I'm just fucking around. All right, Morty. Well, listen. I appreciate the call. I appreciate you giving me the heads up about that physician. It's funny that someone else contacted me prior. It was actually another doctor who contacted me about that. So, listen, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I value you guys tremendously, and anything that could even remotely affect you or water down your message, I'm very concerned about, because I want to make sure that you stay as strong as you are and you continue to do what you're doing. So it's really no skin off my nose at all.
Well, I appreciate that. We're going to be even stronger this year. Like I said, we are. I haven't made the commitment to get the podcast out there on a regular basis or anything. I am actually bringing on an editorial and a production staff this year. It's actually starting this week, where we're going to be getting a tremendous amount of content out there, because I was, even though I said I was sticking around, this entire time, Morty, I've been considering of just basically making the announcement that I'm dropping out and moving on. But this last week has been very interesting. And I have to tell you, I'm not even joking. A post made yesterday on our private group was like, I was just like, you know what, man? Now I am sticking around for a long fucking time.
Oh, it's on.
It's on. So, all right, Morty. You take care. Then. All right. Well, we're going to call it a day.
You guys take care, too. I'll speak next week.
All right, man. You take care. Thanks for the call. And I'm glad that you're back home. Like I told you, you should never have left, dude.
And you sound good, by the way. You sound good.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I knew that Florida was not going to be for you, my man.
Yeah, that's for sure. Did meet a couple of really nice people, like, and some really good doctors. Still, for whatever reason, I'm still really leaning heavily. If I do get a procedure done, it will probably be with the dead banker. So,
Well, you know what? It's a short flight, so.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man.
And the other thing, quite frankly, about working from home basically means is that I can actually recover from surgery without having to worry about people looking at me funny.
That's right. that's a big plus, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man.
Completely.
All right.
All right, you take
Good night,
care.
sir.
Take care. Good night.
Take care. Bye now.
Take care.
All right, guys, we are turning off the phones. I'm going to unplug them right now.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today on the special Monday edition of The Bald Truth. Joe's been trying to get the fuck out of here since we started. I could see he's getting antsy.
I'm not antsy.
But you know what? We ended up having a very good showing and a lot of good calls.
Great calls. Yep. Not bad for a Monday.
Not bad for a Monday. Guys, I'm going to give out the websites, but I really want you to go over to youtube.com/Bald Truth Radio and subscribe to that page. You're going to see some old videos that were put up years and years ago, but I never really utilized that page. I was just like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this shit. But now we are going to put up clips of undercover segments and a lot of really important information that's going to debunk a lot of the bullshit that that everyone's talking about on YouTube currently. And it's really important that you all subscribe. Take the time to like the videos. Take the time to comment so there's some interaction and some engagement. It's all very important. Joe Tillman's personal, a lot of you guys are watching this broadcast right now. His YouTube channel is youtube.com/Hair Transplant Mentor. Take the time to subscribe. Ring that bell. Ring the bell on the other one too. But ring that bell so you are notified when videos are up and when we are live on YouTube. Right, Joe?
I've just linked to the Bald Truth Radio YouTube channel in the chat and down in the first comment in the comment section of this particular video that you're watching now. So please go over there, check it out, and subscribe.
Can you tell if we had any subscribers since I mentioned that today?
Let me go there.
Because there's a lot of people in the fucking room right now, a lot of people who are viewing this program on your channel, and there's a lot of people who are listening through Stitcher Radio, iTunes Radio, iHeartRadio. Just go over there. It's not a big deal. We're doing this for nothing, guys. Help your fellow hair loss brethren out.
Subscriptions won't show up in real time, even though I'm refreshing it. So we have to trust that they are doing the right thing. Right, people?
Okay. Now, currently I see in your room there's 44 people. There's only 21 likes. Like the fucking show.
Oh, we got a new subscriber. There you go. Thank you.
Let's see. Our website, thebaldtruth.com. Again, that's going to be updated too. I'm actually hiring somebody to do this stuff instead of depending on myself like Morty has to, working from home. And the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, if you're considering surgical hair restoration, hair transplant surgery, listen, it's a safe place to start to do your research. That's IAHRS.org. But remember, there's not a surgeon who's part of that organization that doesn't have at least one unhappy patient. That is the nature of cosmetic surgery. If you can't deal with a possible hair transplant failure, do not have a hair transplant. That's the bottom line.
Do not have a hair transplant.
Stop it. American Hair Loss Association is AmericanHairLoss.org. And Joe, did you want to give out any other? Oh, BaldTruthTalk.com is our message forum. If you want to go on a message forum, and I always tell people to stay off the fucking forums, but we try to create a safe place. Got some criticism that I noticed that was recorded a while ago about our private complaint area. And I want to explain why we do that and the importance of it, because we believe in true transparency on Bald Truth Talk. And the reason there's a private complaint area is because more than half the complaints, if not even, it's probably 75%, are bullshit. They are made by a physician's competitor. They are made by, I have caught other forum owners on our particular forum complaining about physicians who may not be supporting their particular forum. It is a crazy world that is this hair loss industry. So we want to make sure that anyone who complains through Bald Truth Talk is an actual patient. So there's a process. Complaint comes in, it goes into a private forum. Once the complaint is checked out, we want to make sure that it's a real patient. We contact the physician, speak to the patient, get all the information. The information is all private. Then that complaint, as long as there's no embellishment, and if there is, we ask them to remove it. It is put up online for public consumption. Period. Nothing is hidden. It is 100% transparent. But you know what? I'm not even going to say it. I did see that, though, yesterday, and I was just like, I can't believe these fuckers, man. It just never ends. Never ends. Trying to do the right thing for consumers, and it never ends. Joe,
because everyone's playing the short game.
Everyone's playing the short game. Joe, give out the websites that you want to give out, and then we're going to get the fuck out of here.
Okay. Let's get out of here.
Good. Let's do it.
Let's just get out of here. Yeah,
okay.
Let's just get out of here.
All right, guys, listen, until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you all so much for listening. We will see you probably, I guess, on Friday, right, Joe?
I think we should make it a date.
Make it a date. Let's make it Friday, 2 p.m. We'll see you then.
2 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
All right. Take care, guys.
Good night.
What happened to this?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid.